Every once in a while, I like to take a second and really get back to my roots. And I'm not talking about my German heritage. I'm talking about my pre-mammalian evolution roots. You know, fish stuff, baby. Back in the good old days when we were swimming around in the ocean before we crawled out onto the land. The problem is that my post-mammalian evolution appendages just really aren't that well suited for aquatic life. So I'm thinking if I could create a larger land mass in my aquatic environment, I might fare better. So I'm going to create a bath tray. Oh, I broke it. So yes, I know that I just exploded my piece of wood for the sake of the video, but it's going to do just fine. We are working with a live edge slab of pecan here, and I know it doesn't look like much, but trust me, I've worked with enough of those live edge slabs to know that we have a beautiful bath tray. The thing's got significant warping to it, but if you look at the top surface, the grain character and the color has amazing potential if you just know how to coax it out. We're going to draw a straight line to get rid of all the nastiness at the end here. Make sure you get better pencils than what I have. I got like 30 for $1.20 and they're almost unusable. We will go ahead and cut off that excess piece. We're going to measure to the correct distance on the other side and we're going to cut off the remainder here. Now that this thing's tiny and simple to manipulate, let me show you some stuff real quick. So pecan has this really cool grain pattern. It's called spalting. You can see it all through here, this splotchy stuff right here. I wish I could tell you from a PhD standpoint what the hell's going on there, but I can tell it to you like I'm a 7th grader. There's fungus, there's spores, mushrooms, fungus. They get up into the wood, they eat shit, they deposit shit, and in doing so, it makes these really cool splotchy patterns. That's the best I got. What I do know is that it's freaking gorgeous when it comes out. Another thing to point out about this wood, this thing could have been sitting out for years and years, and most slabs are. As it does that, the whole surface of the wood oxidizes, meaning the colors get really dull. It's the same reason that the fence in your backyard does not look like the same fence you had when it was put up. The cool thing is, once we take away this top layer of that oxidized wood, we will reveal new wood, and it's gonna be much more shiny, much more vibrant. So let's keep working on this hunk of shit. So you can see as we put it on this flat surface, we still have a lot of play to it because the whole thing is so warped pretty significantly. We need to do something here to where that doesn't happen. We're just gonna shim that bad boy. These aren't anything special, they're just shims. Putting it underneath the slab. That helped a little bit until it doesn't rock anymore. Now that we have all 4 of the corners shimmed, this bus is parked. To flatten it, let's make a router sled. We want to put some runners, some rails, I don't know what the hell to call them, just next to the side of them. So we do one on each side. This is going to be the actual guides that our router sled rides upon. Now, one issue that we have, I see right here, that point is taller than this. So we do have to elevate our rails. I'm just gonna use some, what are these, nuts? Yeah, these are nuts. I should know that. And then I'm gonna put them underneath my rails. You'll notice that I don't know what anything's called, but I know what it does. We're gonna clamp these bad boys so they do not go anywhere. Yeah, I suppose that whenever I don't know what something's called, I just call it a bad boy. Because I'm kind of a bad boy. I'm actually about the least bad boy that you could ever imagine. But every once in a while, I like to pretend I'm a bad boy. Whoa, Jesus. Okay. So this is the actual track that the router is going to fit in. I have specially made this for my router. You can see that we have 2 bits of angle iron here that are set a really specific distance apart. The whole thing just slides on the rails and the router goes in there and it can move left to right. This is the router that we're using. It's got a bit in it. I don't know what it's called, but it just takes away a lot of material and a really flat line. Yeah, surfacing bit, maybe. I know what it does.
Let's go ahead and lube it up so it's slippy then.
Oh yeah.
That ought to do it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's lubed. So we've just made the first pass. You can see we just took a little bit off in that corner, and we just took a little bit off in that corner. So all that's left to do is we just make that bit go a little deeper. Let's try that. After we went a little deeper, those flat areas got a little bit bigger. Now those two places should be on the exact same plane. Let's go deeper. So what you'll notice is that we are hitting the corners on this side of the slab first, and that's because this face is cupped up at us. But you just keep dropping that router bit until you've cleared off the entire surface and it's even. So I know we do in fact have some burn marks on this, but that's just because the router bit gets super hot as it's plowing through all that pecan, which is a really hard wood. But look at how beautiful this grain is going to be. There's so much spalting right here. This is a gorgeous piece of wood. You never would have known it though if you just looked at the top of it. Unfortunately, we have to do the same thing to the other side, and the other side is bigger, but check this out. If we take away the shims, clear away some of the sawdust here, and set this bad boy down, theoretically it shouldn't rock because the other side that we just flattened should be flat. Let's give it a go. Never had too much lube. Now, contrary to the other side, but also extremely intuitively, our router sled is going to hit the middle of this side of the slab first, and that's because the cup is now going down. I am going to cheat here. I'm not going to actually plane the whole surface. I just want to establish a majority of this slab base as flat. Then I'm going to take it over to my drum sander. A drum sander takes off material until you have a very uniform, common thickness. I could not have started on this machine because the original slab was far too warped and curved. It wouldn't have been able to ride on any surface. Once I do this machine, we're going to see that spalting comes out brilliantly. All of the burn marks are gone, all of the oxidized wood is gone, and it's looking gorgeous. I want to take off the bark from this slab right now, but I can tell you that bugs love pecan wood, and so I'm seeing a lot of bug activity right in this interface between the wood and the bark. Bugs right there, bugs right here, bugs everywhere. I want to take the bark off to know what bug holes I might have to fill up with resin versus which ones I can just sand through. Here we go. When I start working with a lot of my custom clients who want live edge pieces, I get the question, hey, are you going to take the bark off or are you going to leave it on? And what I typically say is anytime this live edge piece serves a physical function, whether that's a table, whether that is a bath tray in this case, or whether it's a serving board, I'm going to take that bark off. The bark will naturally fall off, especially if it's being used a lot, and it will do it in an uneven way. So I'm going to go ahead and take the bark off so that I can make it look nice. As I've taken off the bark on this live edge, we kind of see a problem that has now emerged. All of this wood underneath the bark is kind of punky. You can see that my fingernail can actually make marks in this. So over time, that would really just kind of slough off that rotted wood. And that's especially not good in a really wet and humid situation like in a bathroom. Now, the top of this slab, perfectly fine. This is very solid, dense hardwood. It's just right on the edge here where all those bugs were able to get at it a little easier. It's just a little, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's not what you want to happen. So there's a few ways that we could address this. Number one, this is kind of more difficult and expensive. I could use tabletop epoxy and I could pour it over this entire edge, and then I wouldn't leave it there. I'd sand it to where you get back to the wood, but the epoxy would infuse into all this rotted stuff, and the epoxy would give it structure. That's kind of complicated, so what I want to do instead, I'm actually just going to sand through all of this rotted stuff. You can see on top that really it doesn't go all that deep. Once you kind of get to, that's where it's solid. That's where it's solid. But I can sand all the way up until the hardwood starts maybe about 1/4 of an inch in from the live edge. So I just get a disc sander. I'm gonna plow through all this rotted wood. You'll see that as I'm trying to capture content of me plowing through the rotted wood, that I have no spatial reasoning for my light source and what shadows my body is casting on the workpiece. I'm sorry. That was some pretty poor cinematography, what with the lighting and the shadows. This is my first YouTube video, so give me just a moment to figure my shit out, but check it out. With this disc sander that just rotates, that sanding pad just rotates, we just melt through wood, especially if it's that rotted punky wood. So now we go back to our live edge, and this is looking so much better than it used to. Remember how rough and crumbly it was? Now we just have this beautiful, beautiful live, God, the shadows just atrocious. We have this beautiful live edge. When I try to actually, Jesus. Here I am trying to take a video of my freaking piece of wood. Meanwhile, there's literally a star blasting light and blowing it for my whole camera operation. I think I have it figured out. So, as you can tell, I've now sanded through all of that rough stuff and we're just left with this natural smooth live edge. If I start trying to put my fingernail into it, yeah, it makes a little bit of a mark maybe, but I was like crunching through wood. Now it feels like solid pecan wood and the top is still perfect. We are in business. I'm getting pretty close to being done here, but what I want to do to make this a little bit more functional is kind of in this spalting area where these splotches happen. I'm thinking that if we route it out an amorphous shape that follows the grain pattern, it could be a really cool little hole to put like M&Ms or pecans or something. One right here, one in this little area, and then one up here. I think it'll be cool to have just this be flat for like a book or a laptop, and then maybe a drink holder right here. Let's get a router out, start messing with it. And what I want to do here is I'm sketching this. I want to follow the grain. I want to follow that spalted wood. Anytime you're trying to add a new feature to a live edge slab, it's always a good idea to follow the grain because it makes it look really natural. Problem is, I kind of have to freehand this thing because there's really no guide to make these regular shapes right here. And I don't know of any other tool that will help me to do that and really nail those gentle curves. So we're gonna see how this goes. I imagine there's some wizened old woodworker out there who knows a lot more than I do about this whole thing. Yelling through the screen, God damn it, do it this way. I can't hear you, so I'm gonna do it my way. So as I'm cutting away these shapes, it brings up an interesting point. The whole principle of a router is that you have this surface on the bottom of the tool that's riding along the surface of your workpiece, but your bit is constantly cutting away at the surface that your tool is trying to ride on. So if you don't do it methodically, you might accidentally cut away the surface that your tool needs to ride on. If you remember from earlier on in the video, that chunk that flew off of our original slab, this is what it looks like. So that is the oxidized wood that's a little bit dull. Right? All this beautiful coloring, this is what you have to be able to see and find when all you're given is a piece of wood that looks like this. Now, where were we? Ah yes, back to my fish roots. Every good angler knows that you can entice an absolute whopper of a fish if you just present to him a candlelit dinner, a glass of milk, and an animal encyclopedia. And of course we all know that I'm an absolute whopper of a fish. Cheers, mates.